Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the RebornFootball Podcast. I'm Tans and I'm here with
Fuego.
And as usual, we're going to start the episode by heading into our verse of the episode. Just before we get into that though, just want to say thank you for all the love and support on our channel. Anywhere that you're watching, YouTube, or you're listening on Spotify, or you're just watching, a couple clips on TikTok, Instagram, whatever it is, we thank you for the support. And, we have our link tree in our bio where you guys can follow whatever platform that you want to use to, follow our content. So without further ado, we'll let Fuego get into this episode's verse of the episode.
Yeah, so today's verse of the episode is Proverbs 3 verses 5 and 6. So I'm reading from the New King James Version. And it says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths." So just to be very direct about this verse, I think what came to my mind when I was thinking about this verse earlier was, that verse 6 says that we should, in all our ways, we should acknowledge God. So the first verse talks about trusting in God, and not leaning on our own understanding. So kind of looking at it from the point of view that sometimes we will be confident in ourselves, in our ability to, make good decisions, to, do what's best for us, because why would we want to do anything to harm ourselves? But, the Bible also says that the heart of man is desperately wicked. So it actually is very possible for a human being to do something thinking that it's in their best interest and thinking that, this is the best outcome for me is going to come from making this decision, and you can completely destroy your life. Obviously, God forbid that ever happens to any of us, but God always has our best intentions at heart, and that's the reason why we need to trust him totally. Another thing that I kind of thought about when looking at this verse is that it said, "In all your ways acknowledge him." So not just when you're making a decision where you think, it's an easy decision, there's no other right answer. It's not just when, you have a very difficult decision where if you choose wrong, it can have big implications for whatever it is that you're doing. It's not just in the good times, it's not just in the bad times, but it's all the time. So it also brings me back to conversation that I was having in a fellowship that I'm part of. I think it was last Sunday, that we were talking about weakness and the fact that, as human beings, our flesh is weak. So weak in every sense, whether it's weak in terms of weak to temptation or weak in terms of compared to the Spirit of God or anything like that. So knowing that the flesh is weak and we without God are weak, that's a more reason to, put our trust in God and to acknowledge him in all of our ways, because that's where we draw our strength from. So those are just a few things that I would have taken from that set of verses.
I'll have to echo that, especially the bit about, we often think that we know, what's best for our lives. And sometimes we do, like it's not like, we're just dummies that God is controlling. Sometimes we do, but a lot of the time, especially in some nuanced, it can be some nuanced situations, or it can be situations like he mentioned where it seems so obvious, but, you just have to try and always, involve God in what you're doing. And I'm not even saying this from a position of, I always do this. This is something I'm still learning and trying to do myself. It's hard to it can be hard, especially as a growing, we're always growing Christians, but, as a growing Christian, it can be hard to, constantly think, okay, I need to involve God in this situation. I need to involve God in this decision. I need to involve God in this thing that I'm doing. But it's something that we all need to try and make a habit out of, especially, in our, not just in our day-to-day lives, not just in big decisions, but, in every aspect of our life. And that's where, acknowledging God in every aspect of your life comes in. Because, if you start trusting only in yourself, for example, a major, a kind of like cliche kind of pop culture saying is follow your heart, but in the Bible, it says that the heart, as you said, it says that the heart of man is desperately wicked. Sometimes you don't even know what you want. Sometimes your heart is still part of your flesh. Sometimes your heart might be wanting something, but do you know if that's the flesh? Do you know if that's the spirit? So again, also comes down to a little bit of discernment as well. But then, that discernment becomes easier when you trust in the Lord.
Yeah, that's true. I agree with you. And one other thing I will also add, as you were speaking about that, something else that we kind of discussed in the fellowship came back to my mind. Someone asked a question: what does acknowledging God in all of your ways look like? And I think it looks very different on a day-to-day basis. Sometimes you may be tempted with something, and in the moment that you know that it's possible that you're about to fall, you may say a little prayer, you may say, Holy Spirit, help me, or something like that. So it can look like that in some cases. In the good times where, everything is going well and everything is fine, it may just be a thing of being in this constant kind of attitude of gratitude where you thank God for all the opportunities that he's given you. Thank God for life, the fact that you're breathing. If we kind of just do a self-assessment for like 1 minute, you probably would be able to come up with 5 or 6 things that you're grateful to God for, because not everybody has the privilege to, be able to walk with their legs or be able to speak and things like that. So that's also another way that we can acknowledge God. But it's just important that we kind of have that emphasis on, we want to acknowledge God in everything that we do. And as the verse says, he will direct our path if we do that. So
amen. And I actually just wanted to say something as well, that when you mentioned in the good times and the bad times trying to acknowledge God, it just made me think of this season's Crystal Palace team, which has been such a good story in terms of football, but also in terms of faith. Where they have a lot of players on the team that are very devout and public Christians. Joe Ward, the club captain, Mark Guehi, the acting captain, because Joe Ward is not as much of a regular as he used to be. Eberechi Eze, Eddie Nketiah, Mateta,
I believe Lacroix is
Lacroix as well. Mitchell as well, the left back, and then Shalaba was on loan with them, but obviously he's back at Chelsea now. But he was also a big part of that, and you've just been seeing them, in their celebrations, or when they post on Instagram, even after a loss, just the way that they're constantly acknowledging God, constantly praising God. I mean, you can really go really far at this conversation. How how they're encouraging people, how they're meshing, their life, they're acknowledging God even in their profession. The profession where it's not, not that it's not encouraged, or it's not actively encouraged for people to be outspoken with their faith as they're doing. So, I just felt that was a great example of, strong Christians really acknowledging God in everything that they do, even when it might not be as comfortable.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. On that note, I think we'll move into the football portion today. Obviously, I think we were speaking about it before the episode in terms of what we would speak about, and the one thing that I forgot about is probably the biggest thing that needed to be spoken about, which is the Champions League final. Obviously, today is Friday
the 6th.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know why am I right to say this? Yeah, Friday the 6th. Sorry, guys. So the Champions League final is
or was on the 31st,
almost a week ago now.
Yeah.
Obviously, we saw history being made in terms of PSG winning their first Champions League in how long?
For first time.
Is it the first time? Okay.
Yeah.
PSG winning their first Champions League. PSG also setting the record for the biggest goal margin to win a Champions League by, which was 5 goals. And I don't know, like...
treble as well, isn't it, for them?
Yeah. That's the... what we would consider the treble in terms of what Pep did and what... I can't remember who else in terms of managers would have done it.
This is Enrique's second time now.
That's
actually.
True. Yeah,
Enrique
he did it with Barcelona
as well. Pep twice as well. Obviously, Mourinho, a couple Ferguson as well did it once. But yeah, man, I mean, crazy achievement for them. Obviously, off the back of constant disappointment, like PSG, like. A lot of people don't like PSG for different reasons, both on and off the pitch, over the past 10 years. But one thing you cannot say is that you cannot say that they haven't tried. They've tried everything. Like, they've tried everything to get this Champions League, to get to, their holy grail. And, it actually took them, stripping things back and, looking more, moving away from having these focal points, these focal stars, these kind of like French Galacticos, if you will. And don't get me wrong, yeah, it's not like PSG have like some sort of underdog team that, it was a surprise. No, like they have a strong squad of very talented players, but it's a lot more balanced. The whole team, even Dembele, who I think is the best player on that team, the way he plays for the team, the way he tracks back. I'm sure if you're on social media, you've seen the video trending of him about to press the goalkeeper, looking like someone possessed, like really intent on doing his defensive duties for the team. And it's just little things like that they play beautiful football, but they're also willing to work so hard for each other. And it's a lovely team to see win the Champions League. They played really well throughout the whole tournament. The way they kind of like got better as the tournament went on. Yeah. They also beat every single English team in the Champions League this season, which is fair enough. As Enrique would say, they're supposedly the League of Farmers. Of course, that doesn't really negate the point, because obviously it's PSG than everyone else. But fairs. Like one of the Premier League fans are some of the fans that make the most fun out of League One, and they beat all Premier League representatives. So what can you say?
Another kind of interesting thing, as you kind of said, that they were progressively getting better and better as the competition went on. PSG almost didn't make it out of the group
of the groups, yeah,
or the league phase rather.
Sorry, the league phase.
Yeah, because they were maybe, I think, 3 or 4 places off like the very bottom of the league phase.
I'm pretty sure they lost 3 games in the league phase. I'd have to check that, but I'm pretty sure they lost at least 2 games in the league phase. Like, I think they were 2-0 down to Man City in their, I want to say, their second last league phase game.
Something like that. And they brought it back.
And I think I might be wrong, but had they had lost that game, they would either have been eliminated or like on the verge of elimination.
Yeah.
To go from that, and to be fair, I actually watched that game that day, and the levels that they hit that day was like, when you're like, okay, this PSG team could be something. From that day to just, how well they played in the first leg against Liverpool, even though they lost. How well they played against Aston Villa, that first 35 minutes against Arsenal in the semi-final, and then obviously like that insane final. One of the more well-deserving Champions League winners of the past, I want to say 10, 15 years, really.
Fair. I think obviously we talk about the Champions League. Champions League obviously has big implications when it comes to the Ballon d'Or. Dembele obviously being the front runner in that PSG team. But maybe let's talk about, I'm not sure, were you watching last night?
I wasn't watching, but I've seen a bit.
Spain, France, and the Nations League. Now, in my opinion, I don't know why the Nations League was created.
Very, we're having a lot of those type of things in football. We have the Club World Cup that they kind of ruined. Now, because that, I think you guys are the last to officially have that badge every year.
They've changed it. They've changed the badge now. I think it's not the same. It doesn't look the same as this one anymore. And obviously, it's a 4-year thing.
Every 4 years,
it's a 4-year thing at this point now. So it kind of defeats the purpose of that exclusivity
of what it really was. Yeah.
But in terms of kind of like Nations League, Portugal played Germany 2 nights ago, and then France played Spain last night, and it was this big thing of obviously France having a lot of those PSG players, Desiree Doué's in that squad, Dembele was there, obviously Mbappe coming off his great individual season. I think Michael Olise was also in the starting 11 as well.
Yeah.
Like France's attack looks stacked, and in my opinion, I was a little bit confused at the Spain 11, like the starting lineup for Spain in terms of Oyarzabal being their focal point, and then the choice of Merino, Zubimendi, and Pedri. Obviously, 3 great players who work very well together, but you have people like Fabian Ruiz, who's just coming out of that treble-winning season with PSG, and then you have strong kind of midfielders like Gavi, Dani Olmo and those type of players as well. But Spain never really looked uncomfortable in that game, and it seemed as though the French attackers weren't able to get into the game at all. So the way that I'm seeing, particularly with Lamine Yamal kind of lighting up the second half in particular, scoring his 2 goals, winning and scoring a penalty, scoring that second goal, and being very, very influential anytime that he was on the ball, as we kind of have grown accustomed to seeing him doing that type of thing. Really is putting kind of like doubts in people's minds of, okay, Dembele is coming off this great maybe second half of the season, rightly so in that conversation because of his treble, and you see kind of Yamal talking about, like, he openly talking about, okay, yeah, you can say that he did this, you can say that he did that, but I'm here, I've done this, I've done that, or whatever. And he's really kind of like backing what he's saying. He's backing himself, and he's he's doing the talking both on and off the pitch. And I think I was saying yesterday to a few boys that if Spain, as much as I don't really rate the Nations League at all, if Spain are to win the Nations League on Sunday against Portugal, I think Yamal's name is back in the hat for that. For that Ballon d'Or, simply because of the way that he literally dusted off the French team. Now, that being said, the scoreline didn't make it look like it was made it look like it was a close game. When I think France's first goal wasn't until maybe the 57th minute. They got a penalty, Mbappe made and scored that. Ryan Cherky scored a mad goal. I'm not sure if you've seen that.
I seen that ridiculous goal.
I think I was particularly focusing on him when he came on. Yesterday
you guys are getting him even.
Yeah, so City are kind of in talks to get him, and obviously we'll touch on transfer news as well a bit later on. But I think I was just observing him, and I was like, guys, he's taking quarters with his right foot. He's playing passes across the field with his left foot and all of this stuff. And obviously, we kind of have seen compilations of Ryan Cherky with the France under-23s and stuff like that of recent, and kind of seeing his work with Lyon, especially in the Europa League this season as well. It's very crazy to imagine that last night was his first France cap for the senior national team. That just, I don't know. It was very strange to me, but yeah, it's a very good player. Whoever ends up getting him, by God's grace, it would be City. But yeah, he was very good yesterday as well. Of kind of the, maybe you want to say, the next gen talents on show last night in particular.
Yeah, I was actually having a conversation about Cherky with one of my friends at work about like a week and a half ago, something like that. We were saying that he was saying that Cherky. I was kind of saying, okay, Cherky's a very talented player, but like, I was kind of saying, at what top team? Because I feel like Cherky, for him to be like truly successful, the team has to be built around him. Okay. In the sense where, like, where you have that one player that, that one attacker that can essentially do whatever they want. They're not really asked to track back. Just you focus on winning us the games.
Yeah, I hear you.
But in today's football, there's so few players that get that luxury at the top level, like the top teams. It's usually maybe one player, and I was kind of raising the point that what team does he go to where he is that player? Not saying that he can't be that player.
Yeah,
but as of right now, what team does he go to and he is that player immediately?
I don't know, because as you said, there's not many teams that the system can now be fit around this one focal attacker who kind of has that free roam to, okay, he wants to, drift out to the left or drift out to the right. Like, I think you see that with, as much as Barcelona kind of do still have this whole, it's more so about the team than any one player. You do kind of see, maybe not just Yamal, but also you kind of like see with the front three, they will be alternating between, especially when it's Yamal, Rafinha, and Ferran Torres that are playing. If Lewandowski is not playing, you typically see maybe Rafinha will now come to the right and Yamal will come to the left or something like that, and they'll stay there for a little while, that type of thing. So that even in itself is not like a one player is doing his own runs all over the place. So I don't see many teams where that kind of happens. It might be like a best of both worlds thing where sometimes he'll be allowed to kind of just drive forward and do whatever he wants. And, if they lose the ball, cool, whatever. The rest of the team is going to pick that up. And then other times it's a whole team effort where, you can't just lose the ball and just do whatever.
Yeah, I'll say it'll probably be a mix. And I mean, talking about talent, I mean, certainly one of the tip-top talents. I don't know if you seen some of his clips in training, right? With like the Olympic team last year, some of like, the touches, like, those players that they don't even look like they're trying. They just look like they're just, just flicking their leg and everything just comes off. He's one of those players, and he, I mean, ridiculous talent, and you can only hope the best for him. I mean, he's only 21.
Yeah,
and he already has about 4 or 5 years of pro experience. I remember hearing about him making his debut when he was like 16.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's one of those ones for the future in terms of when we're looking at, will we ever get a Ronaldo Messi-esque type of thing in this new generation that's coming up? I don't think we'll have a Ronaldo Messi-esque thing. I think we'll just have more of those really like top quality players where there's the top and there's maybe like 5-6 players that are there. And then you now have kind of like players who are above average and stuff like that. The
Messi Ronaldo thing, is a thing where like it's gonna be so hard for us that lived through it to let it go. Like everybody's always looking for the next Messi or Ronaldo. A couple years ago it was Mbappe and Haaland. Now some people are saying it's gonna be Yamal and Due. Just let these players be who they want to be, man. Because that Ronaldo, what guys that watch ball need to realize is that Ronaldo Messi thing, like that is such an anomaly in terms of like the history of football. If you look through the history of football, it's either there's one outstanding beacon. So like Pele, and in his time was the guy. Eusebio at the point was the guy. Maradona was the guy. Or you have like, more like the 2000s where it's like there's a few different players that you can point at. There's Zidane, Henri, Totti,
It's not like a two-man thing, like one versus the other type thing.
Figo, all these different players. To have two players just, like literally like a movie, like just going against each other for 10, 15 years at such a high level, like what they did will never be the same again. And one thing I don't like is that obviously during the season Rafinha was the Ballon d'Or front runner, and I've loved watching Rafinha play this season. Him and Yamal have been, anytime I watch Barcelona, like it's crazy to see how well they not only do their own thing but how well they link with each other, create for each other. And I remember when Rafinha was the Ballon d'Or front runner, and people were like, "Oh, football's dead if Rafinha's like, bro, just enjoy the football, bro. Like, just enjoy what you're watching. Like, forget about Messi and Ronaldo, bro. True. Messi's in America and Ronaldo's is it Saudi Arabia or wherever he is, bro. Forget about these guys, bro. Like, enjoy the players that we have at the moment. Enjoy them, appreciate them, because after a point they're gonna be gone. Like, bro." They're gonna retire. Obviously not, we're gonna retire. Not, gone. They're gonna retire.
Yeah, no,
but like, just enjoy the players that you have at your disposal at the moment. Especially these younger players. Like there's a lot of talent coming through. Obviously there's Yamal, there's Due, there's even there's Waneri, Miles Lewis-Skelly, who's underrated. I mean, I feel like if Arsenal had managed to get over the line in one of the big competitions, I think Lewis-Skelly would have a big shout for Golden Boy because he's had some amazing performances on some grand stages. But yeah, man, there's a lot of amazing young talent right now in football, and it's just to appreciate it, really, man. Because if you're always complaining, looking at the past and what happened in the back, obviously there's some valid kind of things like, okay, that was better in the past. There's some valid complaints to make, but you can't complain about everything. Like I'm sure the one thing about humans in general is that we're kind of cyclical. I'm sure 20 years ago, people our age were probably saying, "Oh man, in the 90s was so much better," and then in 2010s they're like, "Oh, the 2000s was so much better." Like you just gotta appreciate what's in front of you. For real.
No, I agree with you. Let's talk a little bit about transfers. transfers that I've gone through and kind of like transfer news, rumors, things like that. So I mean, the Premier League, as I take it, as far as I've heard, I haven't heard otherwise, that Florian Wirtz to Liverpool isn't done yet. Like, personal terms are done. Bayer Leverkusen know they're selling to Liverpool, but they're still looking for more money.
Too much more. They're asking for too much money. He's not worth what they're asking. I'll be so real with you. Like, I don't even think he's worth up to 100. I think it's more about what he's worth to Bayer Leverkusen.
Yeah, I think that's priced in as well, because Bayer Leverkusen's team at this point now, I think they won. They did their unbeatable season in the Bundesliga. They had another season to have another go at it. Didn't do so well. Xabi Alonso said, "Okay, cool. Real Madrid have come calling. I'm going." So the boss is gone, and they're kind of being
Frimpong gone as well.
They're kind of being kind of like scrapped and sold for parts type of thing, where the heart of that team, a lot of them are just going. I'm hearing Boniface is probably going to leave now as well. Obviously, Wirtz is pretty much out the door. As you said, Frimpong is already at Liverpool at this point. So, yeah, I mean that's probably the reason why they're setting such a high price and not budging, like, we need this money type thing, so that they can rebuild and try and make something of next season, even though they're losing a lot of their top talents.
Chelsea bought Liam Delap the other day. A very good buy. I've loved everything I've seen from Liam Delap this season. I think he got double digits for a pretty woeful Ipswich team that, although we liked them and wanted to see them do well, in the end they couldn't even crack 30 points, which is a bigger conversation about those last couple of seasons of promoted teams. It's been quite pitiful, to be honest, but we'll talk about that another day. Like, just watching him, you can see that, okay, this is someone whose game can definitely translate to a higher level of play. And I'm hoping he does well at Chelsea. Obviously not too well. I don't support Chelsea, but I like rooting for young players, and I hope he does well. Obviously, not exactly transfer news, but Palmer got the number 10 at Chelsea.
Yeah, it's kind of.
I think it suits him, to not gonna
No,
lie.
it does. It does. I'd be interested. Obviously, the number 10 now brings up, kind of brings back up that conversation about Mudryk and what exactly is happening with his ban, because he's just been banned until whatever. I don't know what it is they're doing in the investigation, but that being, and then there's another thing in terms of like players getting another player's number. Like, Mudryk hasn't been sold, he hasn't been isolated like other players were isolated in Chelsea's squad, say at the beginning of last season, but his number has been given up. And somebody like Cole Palmer, I wouldn't say it's that he does not care about Mudryk, but like, they're giving you the number 10 and there's no real, everybody else is in support of it. He's probably not really going to care too much about it, versus say somebody like Lamine Yamal talking about, Ansu Fati is his friend, so he doesn't want to take the number 10 until Ansu Fati has left or whatever is going on with that. But I mean, aside from that, number 9 and number 10 for Chelsea next season are both City Academy graduates. I don't know if I'm burning about it or if I'm proud to say that, we kind of like given Chelsea top talents and stuff like that. But it's good to see them kind of getting to the point where, okay, they're now front runners in a big team where they can, make an impact as they would have if they had space at City, for example.
Yeah, I mean, just to touch on City's academy quite briefly, but I mean, I think you guys are kind of coming to the end of it now, but kind of like late 2010s, early 2020s, you guys had a ridiculous like peak with like academy performance. Like, I remember 2022, I think obviously you guys won the Premier League. I think you guys won like the Premier League and like under 21s, under 18s. I remember like that picture.
5 Premier Leagues and all Fernandinho and then the rest of these small boys.
Yeah, I think Rico Lewis was actually in that picture. So it's just crazy. And then, but it was like, okay, so what guys are going to come out of it? Because obviously Foden was kind of like, it was like the beginning of it. It was like the start of it. Foden, Sancho, Brahim Diaz, those guys. But then now, obviously, you've seen Morgan Rogers, Liam Delap, Cole Palmer, and then even still at City, Oscar Bob,
James McAtee is also still at City as well.
James McAtee, scored a couple of goals towards the end of the season. That City Academy is ridiculous. It's clear you guys put in a lot of investment into that academy, and you can see generally when they come out, like they just their technical ability is just usually just off the charts. Immediately.
Another thing is it's financially kind of sound for City as well, because what ends up happening is for those who, I think a lot of them obviously do want to stake a claim in the first team. And, when they're bouncing in or around the first team, you're with the 23s, you're with the first team, you're with the 23s. They're trying their best to impress the boss. But for those who kind of know that, okay, look, this is not going to work out type of thing. Haaland plays as a striker. I'm a striker. I'm not getting into the City first team type thing. That they go for like 10, 15 mil with zero Prem experience.
Bro, I even forgot. There's another one I even forgot. Romeo Lavia.
That guy that Liverpool and Chelsea were drooling over.
Bro, like the thing is with City, like City's academy, like I actually have to rate City and Chelsea. City and Chelsea academy over the past decade to 15 years has reached such a level where a guy wouldn't have made a single Premier League appearance and they're going for 10, 15, 20, 25 million. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And it just goes to show that, when you invest in the because obviously, you can just invest in the first team so that the first team can win. But when you really invest from the foundations, it helps the first team, because you never really hear City in PSR trouble, regardless of all the money that they spend. And even Chelsea, it came out yesterday that Chelsea are like the safest club in terms of PSR. Now, not all of that is academy. We know that they were taking profit, like putting in profits from like their women's team and stuff like that, things like that. But
Sure.
But a lot of that is selling their academy players as well. And when you sell your academy players, pure profit as is booked in the accounts. I mean, it can only be positive.
Yeah, that's true. We'll probably get onto a bit more transfer news in the next episode. One thing I did want to touch on very quickly is the Club World Cup, because obviously not this weekend. I think it's it's kind of just over 2 weeks away is the beginning of the Club World Cup, and I think I just wanted us to kind of go over it in terms of what's going on, who are the teams going in, who are a few of the teams going in.
Who's in
so it? I'm here. I'm just gonna check very quickly who is competing. But basically, the Club World Cup is analogous to the FIFA World Cup. The difference is obviously it's
the clubs.
32 teams now. It's different to next year's World Cup.
48
because
teams.
The FIFA World Cup is expanding to 48 teams. But this is going to be a 32 team competition, representing 6 continental federations. It's over a month, basically the same format as the World Cup, or like the old World Cup, where it's 8 groups of 4 teams from different continents, of course, and they will all play each other once, and then they go into the round of 16, quarters, semis, and then the finals. So what we're seeing here is, okay, from Europe, Chelsea, Real Madrid, City, Bayern, PSG, Inter Milan, Porto, Benfica, Dortmund, Juventus, Atletico Madrid, and RB Salzburg. That's an interesting one. I want to know why.
I was literally thinking that.
I want to know why they qualified. We'll see.
Anyway.
We'll come back to you guys with why they qualified. But then from South America, we've got, so that was 12 teams from Europe. 6 teams from South America being Palmeiras, Flamengo, Fluminense, Botafogo, River Plate, and Boca Juniors.
Oh, like those are 6 huge teams.
Yeah, because you don't really hear anything about any other teams. Yeah, maybe Santos is the only team that's missing from that list that you're thinking, okay, maybe when you think of South America, you think of these teams. In terms of AFC being Asia, you got Al Hilal, Urawa Red Diamonds. They were in the last Club World Cup, actually. Al Ain and Ulsan
HD. High definition? I don't think it's high definition.
Yeah, but okay. We'll see about it. We'll see whenever they're playing, whoever they're playing. From the continent of Africa, Al Ali, the African Al Ali.
Egypt dominate our home, man.
That's true.
In Africa, man.
Wydad AC, they were also at the last Club World Cup. Esperance de
Tunisia, I'm assuming.
Tunisia and Mamelodi Sundowns. Again, that's probably a North African team rather than a...
Sundowns, though. That gives off Southern Africa.
We'll see. We'll see about it. But North Central America and the Caribbean, Monterrey. I don't know who they are.
I think that's a Mexican team. I might be wrong.
Possibly.
But then the Seattle Sounders, Pachuca, and LAFC, Los Angeles FC.
One thing that's being said about LAFC. No, we're not there yet. I'll speak about it in a minute. Oceania, OFC, being literally just Australia and then a few other kind of islands around them, New Zealand and obviously other islands like that. Auckland City. So it'd be interesting seeing Auckland City going up against a team from like Europe, for example. But that, I guess that's what the Club World Cup being expanded is all about.
Yeah.
And then host nation USA makes zero sense. We'll speak about that in a second. But Inter Miami, it says that they won the 2024 MLS Supporters Shield.
They were just, I would like, it's quite simple. They were just trying to get Messi in there, and you know what? Fairs. I honestly fairs, like, because like that was the Supporters Shield is not even like their real thing. It's just it's like the NBA, like finishing top of the standings at the end of the regular season. That's literally what it is.
I think the idea was that the host nation being the USA, it was supposed to be the winners of the MLS Cup. I can't remember who won it, but Inter Miami, as you said, were included because they want to get Messi into that competition. I think it's quite likely that Ronaldo is going to end up going to the Club World Cup as well because they have this transfer window open.
Yeah, they're saying he might move to Al Hilal.
It's been rumored. I hope it doesn't happen because like he has to stay there after. Like it's not just a Club World Cup thing where I go there and then I come back, or I go there and then I do whatever I want afterwards type thing. But
1 month loan for the Club World Cup.
Yeah, it's a bit weird. But that being said, there's a lot of prize money going for the Club World Cup. And then on top of that, there was one other thing I wanted to say about it. Obviously, being in America, it's interesting. World Cup next year, am I correct to say, is also on the American continent as well?
Yeah. It's kind of a practice. Like that's what they use because this is replacing kind of the Confederations Cup as well.
Okay.
Confederations like a mix of the Confederations Cup and the Club World Cup, like the old Club World Cup, like the two concepts.
Yeah.
And with the Confederations Cup, it always used to be hosted but it always used to be the year before the World Cup at the same as like a practice. I remember the Brazil one in 2013. That was Neymar's coming out party, but they beat Spain 3-0 in the final, and Neymar scored, and it was like, okay, Neymar is really gonna bring home the World Cup in Brazil, but unfortunately, we all know what happened.
Yeah.
But on that note, I think we'll end it there. We plan to have this about 30 minutes. I think it went a bit longer, but
we're almost 40. But look,
just enjoying the conversation. What can you do? Thank you guys if you've lasted this long. Thank you for your support as always. And I'll let Fuego take us up.
Yeah, again, thank you for your support. Obviously, Tans had said at the beginning of the episode that, our link tree is going to be linked in the bio, as well as kind of like links to maybe Spotify, YouTube, and all the other places you can watch and listen to the episode. Do watch, listen, like, comment, subscribe. If you have any major beefs with anything that we have said in terms of our opinions, do let us know.
Please comment.
We're happy enough to have conversations about that. And yeah, thank you so much for your support. And we will see you guys in the next episode.